Hello. Testing. K-Man. Hey, man. Can you hear me? Testing out my audio. Are you able to hear me? Oh, nice. Okay. Thanks for joining. Yeah, I'm still trying to figure out this this live YouTube streaming. So thanks for your patience. Hi, Forever Forgiven. Let me try to put in the link, this stream link to the other chat. I think that's drawing some confusion here. Okay, so, all right, so it looks like, yeah, we have some people joining here. Yeah, thank you. Appreciate it. So, Cayman Forever, you know, what do you guys go by, like first name wise? Appreciate, you know, you subscribing and watching all the videos. Will is still on the other link. Yeah. I don't know how I'm able to, Kong Yang, okay. I don't know how to let Will know, but hopefully he can jump onto this here. So how are you guys doing? Today's market was looking a lot better. You know, just seeing price of Bitcoin go up. How did you find the channel Forever Forgiven? I wonder if Will is able to look at the. Okay, let's see. Super micro stock. Are you talking about SMCI? I'm just check out my sharing screen capability here. So, Forever Forgiven, you're talking about SMCI, right? Is that what you're talking about? Yeah, I think, you know, they got, I think BDO did some auditing on SMCI, and I think they're going to be back to compliant state. So because I don't know too much about SMCI, but at one point it ran up so much and it's just been bleeding out. So hopefully, you know, the stock picks up again. I think BDO, they're one of like the big 5 accounting firms, so I think they'll do well. But overall, looks like we have some folks joining in here. Hi, Jason. Thanks for joining in. So yeah, if you have any questions, would appreciate you just putting the queue right at the beginning, and then we can just, you know, I could be able to see those questions and be able to provide updates. Yep. So it looks like we have some people flowing in here, but thank you all for joining. And it's nice to see price of Bitcoin go up at least today, just breaking through that 97,000. What are your thoughts on just this overall week? Do you think Bitcoin will continue to, you know, just break through? get back up to that 97,000. Like yesterday in the live forecast, I was forecasting, you know, if it breaks through that 96,500, we're going to have the shorts try to, you know, cover at least. And it did hit that 96,500, got to 97,000. A lot of big wild swings as we look at like the different prices like throughout the day, like looking at Mara. I mean, started the day, it was like at 1822. And then all of a sudden, because price of Bitcoin started going back down to like 96,000, there was heavy fluctuations. But I think it was nice just to see the big name companies like CleanSpark, Mara kind of take that upward trajectory, which is 2% gain. MSTR as well. It started off at like 310 and then ended the day at like 300. So there was a wild swing there. But overall, you know, just looking at the different news, I mean, it was nice to see H.C. Wainwright predicting that Bitcoin will go up by like 225,000. That just shows that there's more potential for Bitcoin to go up. There's one analyst saying that it's going to go up 225,000 per coin by the end of 2025, and I think all of that has to do with, you know, the Trump administration coming in. You know, even Trump's son Eric Trump, he was also predicting that Bitcoin can soar 1 million per coin. Attributing this to his father being the most pro crypto president in the history of America. So, what are your thoughts with that? I mean, there was also another guy on X, I mean, Plan B. He's forecasting that just with this visual here, he's forecasting that we haven't even seen the best of Bitcoin yet. And just based on the, you know, that black line, that's like the 200-week moving average. So I think for the moving average to set the baseline, that tends to happen like right at that the halving event. So in about 3 years, we'll get that, you know, that real 200-week moving average. But from his forecasting, he's suspecting that it'll land somewhere around 500,000 from now to 2028. So that just tells you how much upside Bitcoin has. And what does that mean for, I mean, companies like MSTR, Mara, CleanSpark, RIOT, even Bitcoin as well. Okay, so Kong Yang here. Okay, so can you confirm CleanSpark's HODL has been all mined and no purchases? So I think just with CleanSpark, let's take a look at the top HODL here. So CleanSpark, I don't know if this is like the most up to date, but we have CleanSpark at like 9,297 based on, you know, just an article that was released on Reddit. But I think that there was like 1,200 Bitcoins that were exchanged on Coinbase, and it has to do with the line of credit. So in exchange, Coinbase returned 1,200 back to CleanSpark. So I think in terms of like the latest HODL amount, they're at around the 10,000, and that is also including like, you know, 620 Bitcoins mined for the month of December. So it's going to be interesting to see all of the announcements that's coming out. So Bitfarms actually announced today that they mine more Bitcoins in the month of December than the prior month, November. So Bitfarms here, HODL count 870. So you add 200 something to that. So they're about 1,000. So can you imagine how much other miners are going to announce like an increase from a month over month perspective? But Kong Yang, I think that from a HODL perspective, it's all mined and no purchases at this point. And with CleanSpark, their fleet efficiency at less than 40,000 Bitcoins mined. I think Bitfarms, they just got their fleet efficiency to like 20. joules per terahash. What that means is the ability to mine with less energy, so lower cost. So CleanSpark is at like 17 joules per terahash. So I think that just shows CleanSpark's ability to mine at a very low cost, or lower cost than other you know companies out there. And I think that's what's going to cause more barriers to entry, right? Competition wise, companies that have, the latest and greatest technology, those will shine more than other companies. And you'll start hearing more about acquisitions happening. But I think, we may see a lot of the companies like even Bitfarms. I mean, today it went up by 6%, Hive as well. These small little companies that can mine, even though we've seen such a big beat down, these hidden gem companies may start doing well. Of course, yep, you're welcome, Kong Yang. Okay, so Forever Given, they had someone redo their books and no abnormalities were found. Yeah, so hopefully SMCI super microcomputer, hopefully they stay in the NASDAQ 100 along with like MSTR, and then BDO will just get their accounting, back to par. So Mara Holdings is the way to go without taking direct risk in Bitcoin. So I think, why are we all invested in the miners? I would be interested to hear what you guys have to say. So me being an investor of the miners, I have my reasons. I like to hear what your guys's reasoning is as well. Okay, so Jason here, I'm looking forward to miner earnings season. I believe this is what might be the catalyst for some and the nail in the coffin for others. Yeah, I mean, okay, so let me just share some context with you. So Q2 financial results, I mean, that was a total beatdown, right? Every miner out there got a black eye for Q2 results. Even Q3, right? Because that was like post halving. These shorters, they're smart. They know how to take advantage of like underperformance, especially with earnings per share estimates not even being reached, underperforming. But let's look at, let's say, for example, with RIOT. Okay, so RIOT, where it currently is at like 17,000. That's including the HODL count. But let's say without the MSTR playbook where they acquired more Bitcoin, let's say 11,000. Okay, so we know that from Q3 to Q4, Bitcoin price went up by like 30,000. So if you multiply 11,000 times 30,000, that just shows how much price appreciation went up. So that's all going to be included in your income statement. So that's all going to be positive return on cash flow. Think about Marathon Digital, right? So how much HODL did Marathon Digital have before the additional, Bitcoins that were purchased? So what they had HODLed before buying Bitcoin, multiply that by like, the rise in the Bitcoin price. So 30,000 extra per every coin. That's going to be the rising price that you report on your income statement, which will be all on the Q4 results. So I think Q4 data is really going to be the driving catalyst. And I think a lot of, especially with like, investors that really base their decision making off of like finances, we're going to see much better reporting in Q4. So think about Mara alone, their HODL count of, like what was the HODL count before buying Bitcoin? Each Bitcoin rising 30,000 in Q4. That's going to be huge numbers. So we'll see the big three miners like Mara, CleanSpark, RIOT platforms really start running from my perspective with Q4 results, given that we had 2 consecutive quarterly underperformance with the earnings per share. So I hope that gives you some context here. Here we're looking at 200-week moving average heat map. So what did we notice for the prior run-up, the heat map? We saw that that 200-week moving average heat map go into the yellow, green, and red. But in terms of where we are right now, we just see like that dark blue, purple hue. We haven't really seen that heat map kick in yet, where we see that darker red, yellow color. So let's take a look at also the fear and greed index. I like looking at this as well, just to see where we are. I mean, even Coinbase kind of shows you like where we are with like the fear and greed. Like what's the uh, gauge telling us right now? But I think where we currently are right now, in that we're in that green zone here. So we haven't really seen that fear kick in yet. Okay, so here we're now in that greed zone here. So that's a good way to kind of see where we are. A lot of buying happened, around that drop off of like 2022. A lot of people started buying Bitcoin at that price. But all in all, it's great to see that, Wainwright's prediction on Bitcoin, in that it's going to break through 225,000 per coin. So I think that's going to really make a difference here. So thanks, Ambience, for joining. Yep, hopefully we're all winners here. So miners, a leverage play. Yep, so thanks, William, for joining. Okay, so Enlightened Trucker, thanks for your insight and info. I believe RIOT is going to do great. I think so too. I mean, I think these established companies, I think a lot of the miners that didn't really have a high HODL count, but just more around the positioning in the AI space, I think that's really what drove up the price of like BitDeer, Hut 8. Those were like the workhorses for 2024. But where we are now, I think with Q4 data coming out soon, I think that's really going to be the driving factor for these pure miner plays to really dominate, based off of the income statement that we'll start seeing. So like Mara is going to have huge numbers, CleanSpark, Riot, all of those companies are just going to show, based on their SEC reporting on the quarterly results. That's really going to drive it up. So hi Daniel, thanks for joining here. So where is Iron on that list? So Iron, I think they're like they're in that top category with these big players. I mean, Iron with their AI cloud-based service generating revenue, uh, they are a solid company. You talk about fleet efficiency, Iron is number one in terms of fleet efficiency. So when you look at fleet efficiency, Iron is number one. CleanSpark is like at number two, right? So when cost becomes a big factor, I think all of that's going to come into play. Iron, I mean, today they did pretty well. Taking a look at Iron, let's just pull up the Iron chart just so I can share with you. I mean, today it went up, 6.52% Iron here. It broke through that $11 range. I think it's totally undervalued. We scale out to, a 1 month range. At one point, it was like at $16. Definitely another undervalued play here, just from my perspective with Iron here. So I hope that gives you some context with Iron. Okay, so here question, thoughts on HPC versus pure Bitcoin miners for 2025, and which one has a better potential for higher gains? That's an amazing question. I think because a lot of people learned about HPC like just recently, right? It just became a hype where a lot of us learned that abbreviation. I mean, I personally learned HPC this year, but I've heard about quantum computing, all of that like many years ago, like QUBT. I remember making videos like about 3 or 4 years ago, QUBT, when it was trading much lower, but I never heard about HPC. So because all of that was talked about this year, it's going to be more common to hear more companies positioning, getting into HPC. But I think this is where seasonality has a big role as well. Not to say that if companies start announcing that they're going to get, into HPC AI, of course, I think the price is going to go up, but I think because pure Bitcoin miners, they have a reasoning as to why they want to continue pursuing as a pure miner play versus not. You're already leading as a number one, number two, number three hodling company. So I think business model wise, it just makes more sense to just continue improving hash rate. Bitcoin price is estimated, like what Michael Saylor says, in about 20 years from now, it can go like, over 20 million. So I think the vision for pure Bitcoin miners is that overall long-term perspective, price is going to go up. But I think coupling that with HPC, I think it's difficult to say. I wish I had the magic 8 ball and really assess, but I think that just looking at the variable of seasonality, because Mara, CleanSpark, and Riot, I mean, these are pure miner plays because they underperformed in the year 2024. That means 2025 is really going to be an opportunity for these miners to really start performing. So I hope that helps. Yeah, so I think it'll be interesting, like to do like a survey, like for all of the minor investments, how many minor investments actually have some investments in, like, the cryptocurrency market. I think because some people are turned off by the overall price of Bitcoin, like it's so expensive. The psychology is that you can acquire much more shares with like a Bitcoin miner, for example. That's why um, people think about just getting into the miner stocks, which is like a proxy to owning Bitcoin if you think about it. What other questions do you guys have? Okay, so here came in, invested in Mara and Cores. Yeah, Cores is solid as well. I think a lot of these miners are going to be winners. I mean, it was hard in 2024 to like really predict that it was going to be like BitDeer and Hut 8, right? But I think it's going to be much easier to really just pinpoint which ones are going to do well, because these companies have bled out so much over the course of time. So I think it's important that we look at the price of Bitcoin. So it'll be interesting to see, how Bitcoin will behave tomorrow, especially during the market opening. Hopefully, it stays at 96. If it's above 97, even better. Miners are going to start popping up. So Brad here, what is your allocation percent to MSTR? So, great question. I think MSTR, I personally think where MSTR is right now, I mean, it dropped by like, nearly half of percentage, but that run up to like 550, now down, now today it broke through the 300 range. I think there's potential for it to start, V-shaping back up, especially because of these type of price forecasts, right? Predicts Bitcoin to hit 225K. I mean, if and when Bitcoin gets to that price, 225K, oh man, I think MSTR, it's going to blow things out of the water and just break all-time highs. There's even other people suggesting that in the next 3 years or so, Bitcoin's going to get to 800,000 based on the 200-week moving average at every time point of the halving cycles. So it'll be interesting to see. Here's one play that I think has extreme potential here as well. So Riot Platforms, looking at their overall. So we're looking at, just earnings per share, and it's pretty consistent with like Mara and CleanSpark. So last year, Q4 2023, they performed well. Q1 they perform well, and I think there's a degree of like cold weather that comes into play as well, because their facilities in Texas and things get hot, so they have to like switch off in the event when things start getting warmer. But Q2 was an underperforming year. Actuals didn't meet expected. Okay, and then the shorters really took advantage during the halving cycle, Q2 2024. Q3, right? We had underperformance again based on the earnings per share. But Q4, I mean, if we correlate it back to Q4 2023, we're going to see positive performance. And where we are Q4 2024 versus last year is that price of Bitcoin reached its all-time high in December. So all of that's going to be factored in as well. So I think the big three miners are really going to show an outperformance in Q4, and that's really going to be a catalyst for all of these companies that have the same strategic initiative, especially the main hodlers. So here, Omer, so I hope I'm pronouncing that correct, but thanks for asking. So will CleanSpark get out of the downtrend anytime soon? So we saw the potential today, right? Let's take a look with CleanSpark here. Just on an intraday, it got up to like 979 and then ended the day 945. I think there's going to be a push up. It all depends on the price of Bitcoin. So like starting tomorrow, if we see that consistent 96 and then, like 30 minutes before or like during the, right before the market opens, if we see that run up, I think we're going to see at least, 2% up or even more. I thought that, the miners were going to do a lot more better today, especially with Bitcoin price going up. But I think, we're early into the year, right? And we know that come 18 more days, inauguration is going to be coming up. I think that there's going to be a lot of potential coming our way very soon here. Okay, so here, a lot of these miners are falling so far behind that they aren't even worth looking at. Yeah, that's true. I mean, it's tough. And I think, William, it's a safe play going with Mara. They're the number one hodler. They're the number one in terms of mining, producing per day. They're getting rewarded, the fastest. And knowing that Bitcoin, there's about less than 1.5 million. Mara, they're ahead of the game right now. So I think that's why it's looking good. Hi, JMC. Thanks for joining. Okay, so here's a question. So I would appreciate, just like how Kong Yang is doing it here. So if there's any questions, if you could just put a Q right at the beginning, and hopefully I can answer those questions in the best way that I can. Okay, so will you wait for the top before taking profits, or will you be trimming on the way up? As for me, I will hold my shares while I swing trade calls. So, for me, I'm much better at buying low, and I have a hard time selling high, because that's just a big problem that I have. I sometimes let the emotions come into play, and when I let the emotions come into play, it's like that hindsight bias that kicks in. It's like, oh, I should have sold when it was higher, because I tend to like just let it ride and expect that it will continue to rocket fuel. But now, like, just with experience, I think technical analysis becomes very important. Like when the relative strength index, for example, it reaches like an indicator of like high RSI 70 or 80, that's where profit taking is important. Similar to what we saw, just with the recent run up with all the Bitcoin miners. So for example, when we look at like CleanSpark, for example, right? $18. I mean, this would have been the time to like sell and then just rebuy back in right after a matter of weeks through patience. That was a top off. That RSI point was much high overbought there. And then if you have the patience to kind of just wait for that low point and get back in, that's really how you make money. But it's difficult to really time where is the top. So I think that's what we all kind of strive to do, timing that top off. But that's something I'm trying to learn and polish on. So I think setting price targets is very important as well, especially looking at, okay, so what is the 52-week high? If there's any potential to see whether it can retest that 52-week high. If you're committed to that, then set the limit there. But let's say if you base things off of momentum, if things start running even more, that's where the greed factor kicks in and you think there's more room for it to run. So in William's case, the conviction forecast of Mara to go up to $100 per share, right? It all just depends on, how every investor plays. But people say like sell the news, right? And buy on fear. So I think all of that comes into play. So what do you think? CleanSpark, Mara, Riot, LM. So I think that's, I think you joined in a little later, Alan, but I was talking about, just to give you some flavor on what I was talking about here. So just on HODL count, right? We know that MSTR bought up Bitcoin recently at a higher cost. Mara bought, like close to 100K, Riot bought close to 100K. Looking at Riot, for example, before the MSTR playbook, they were like at 11,000 Bitcoins that they held from just mining from many years. So obviously the cost to mine is much lower, but because they held on to that Bitcoin, because they owned that Bitcoin before the run up in Q4, you have to factor in that each Bitcoin went up by like, a minimum 30,000. So the HODL amount that you have, you multiply that by like 30,000 per coin. That's going to be what your earnings per share is, your positive return on cash flow. So earnings per share, I don't have the exact numbers, but we're going to see that big disparity, like what we see here with CleanSpark, earnings per share. We're going to see the blue be above the estimate. That's for sure. So we see here, I mean, earnings per share for CleanSpark, we haven't had that announced yet, but I think that the blue is going to be way above the orange. Okay, so William here, Mara end of year $100 per share, Mara 25% short. So that's going to be, that's going to be amazing. Mara hitting $100. It did that once, so I think there's always going to be, potential. Okay, so Jason, crypto ETFs. I think there's like different ETFs like IBIT. What else is there out there? I think there's like so many ETFs. I think they're even talking about like ETF bonds that are going to be coming out soon. Yeah, I mean, Kong, yeah, I think that's like the part that most people don't understand. Like when it comes to investing, buying at the low point is like much harder for people to do. But like the avid investors, like let's say if you own a stock and it's on a down day, to make yourself feel better, I mean, buying some shares on the low, you have dollar cost averaging down, so that's upside there. But I think ETFs, I mean, there's like a number of ETFs that Vanguard and BlackRock created, and I think there's a lot of other plays like we have MSTR. They actually created other ways to invest. If you want more volatility, you can look at MSTU, different plays. Buy now when everyone is fearful, sell when the market's hot. Yep, that's the Warren Buffett strategy that we all follow. But the question is, do people follow that to the T? So question from Brad. A lot of people are saying we will break 92K. Wonder if miners and MSTR and miners will hold their ground better. So that's a great, question. So, do you think in 2025 Bitcoin will be the better commodity play, or will it be MSTR or the miners? So we've seen 2024 price of Bitcoin, just going for a 1 year chart. It's gone up here. You see 114% 1 year performance. One point it was like 39,000, got up, in fact, it was up higher when it reached that 108,000, but current state, 114%. That's pretty good numbers there, right? And then you look at, MSTR, like just from a year perspective, from like $43 to 550, that's about 800%. So MSTR outperformed Bitcoin like towards that November timeframe, end of November, by a factor of like 700%. So that just tells you like things can go up very fast, but in the meantime, you have to have that, that stomach for volatility, or be able to, have that laser sharp focus and be able to take profits the moment you see that high RSI kick in. So to me, like, because we see like that rise in Bitcoin price, of course, it's much slower than what we saw with MSTR, even though MSTR dropped down by 50%. Looking at it through the lens of like the miners, like on a, just looking at CleanSpark, for example, we don't see that similar upward trajectory, right? So Bitcoin has that upward trajectory. Mara has that upward trajectory. I mean, look at the 1 year trajectory for like CleanSpark, or like, let's say, if we look at Mara, for example, right? It's just been hovering up and down, but we don't see it trending up. And just recently, it's on that downward trend. So I think we're up for something big. We scale back here, 5 year range. We saw that run up of like what, back in like 2020, single dollar digits up to $83. So, these type of miners, yes, people say, oh yeah, so it's not really the same. Yes, I do agree it's not the same, but that doesn't mean that there isn't rocket fuel in these type of stocks. I think that, it'll run when we least expect it to, like to this type of degree here. $100 is the only start for Mara. I like that conviction there. Okay, so we have Marcus Moore here. What people don't realize, since most of them came in after the split, we made this kind of move up and then dip before we ran up to 1900, then back to 1300, 1400, and then split up from here. Oh, you're talking about MSTR stock split? Yeah, I mean, the stock split did, attract more investors, because at that time that price range was pretty high, similar to like what Tesla and Nvidia have been doing over the course of time. You're right. Okay, so I know we've gone over, perhaps we can, hopefully we can continue for like another 45 minutes. I was hoping to keep this, at 30 minutes, but perhaps we can just take some more questions here. Just go on for another 5 more minutes here. Yeah, so Ross, I think everyone is trying to, hope that he gets out with a lower degree. And with FTX, we heard about news with FTX today. So there's going to be like extra money after that whole case. So what's going to happen like with all of that money available, will that start flowing into the market exchange, especially with FTX? So, when it comes to crypto, some Bitcoin, some altcoins, I'm dispersed all over, but I would say, MSTR miners right now, I have a lot more conviction in the miners because I like looking for, like the hidden gems. Like if a company does bad for a year, which we've seen in 2024, again, we can't really forecast how things will be in the next year. But I think just based on what we see from a year over year perspective, it's likely that the miners are really going to outperform. And I keep saying that, but I think that it's true in that seasonality isn't something that is not real. I mean, look at the seasonality of Mara, right? 2022, it was a bloodshed, bloodbath. 2023, it went up. 2024, it went down. So there's all this negative and positive, negative and positive. So I think this year, because we have Bitcoin price estimated to get up to that 225K, I think we have, potential here. And hopefully we all can, make some huge gains in the year 2025, especially with new president on board. I think all of that's really going to, add value. As when it comes to allocation, I would say that miners, um, allocation is where it's at. Okay, what other questions does anyone have? So if I had $500, how would you recommend I allocate my funds? So just based on what Brad is asking, like because we're seeing, today it was interesting. We saw like altcoins do much better, right? So let's take a look at um, some altcoins as well. So I think we're seeing some run-ups with SUI. I mean, they've done really well. I'm also in. I have some funds in SEI. Um, I think that SEI has that potential as well here. I mean, they kind of follow that trajectory of like SUI, but I think that that recent run up of like 70 cents recently and now at 43 cents, uh, possibility for it to like start ramping back up. But one point all time high was like $1, and then it went to that low point of 25 cents. Recently, December went up to 70 cents, now at that baseline of 43 cents. I think altcoins have that potential as well. So, if we're talking about like a breakdown of $500, a portion in altcoins would work. A portion in, miners would also be effective as well. Um, I think if I'm willing to gamble, I think Bitfarms is, a company that is going to bounce back. I mean, it dropped so much, like close to like 149, but now it's like at 160. I think $2 is going to be coming up very soon at a minimum. Okay, so question, how do you think Bitcoin price will react if we get no strategic Bitcoin reserve on January 20th? I don't think it will happen on day one. And I agree with you 100%. I don't think that we're going to get, any like clear vision on the strategy, like especially on day one. But with Donald Trump, he's that type of president where he's not quiet with what he intends to do. And I think, you know, Trump, he knows the longer he waits with acquiring Bitcoin, the higher the risk it is, because right now it's a global race. Countries, the faster they can get approvals to use their money to buy Bitcoin or print money to buy Bitcoin, they're going to be the winners. So Trump, once he figures this all out and gets the buy-in, he's going to announce some updates, but definitely not day one. That's for sure. So the strategic Bitcoin reserve is not likely going to be like on January 20th, but I think there's going to be that high demand for companies to hear more about the U.S. strategic Bitcoin reserve. And, you know, Trump is very transparent as a leader to announce what that vision will be. But then again, you know, like as we head into February, the financial data is going to be coming out. So I think all of that will be factored in. Okay, so you know, I think that would be the last question, and you know, I just didn't want to overextend the live going on here, but once again, I really appreciate you all joining and just having, you know, this continued dialogue with questions. It's quite fun, and I hope that you all enjoyed. And thank you for all the continued support. You know, really appreciate it. Yes, definitely. I mean, I'm going to keep this more on the regular because I think that this helps us all learn and kind of share ideas, right? We're not like perfect at, you know, all of this, but you know, collaborating and sharing ideas like this, I think it really can help one another in this year 2025. But yeah, thank you, William. Yep, definitely like and subscribe. I know you, William Kong Yang, are subscribed. JMC subscribed. You know, let's just keep it coming. Yep, all we see is W. Okay, well, thank you guys. You all have a great night. Hope you guys can sleep well and stop checking your phones on like the stock prices and Bitcoin price in the morning, because I have that tendency to do that too. So, all right, guys. Well, take care. You all have a good night.